In the last video, I fitted coilovers and wheels to what once was the ugliest Honda Civic in the UK. And I think it's safe to say that it definitely isn't the ugliest Civic in the UK anymore. Now, if you're into Hondas, then you would have heard of Mims Honda show. And if you haven't heard of Mims, it's a Honda only show where some of the best Hondas in the UK all meet up to show off their cars, and they also open the drag strip so you can take your car down there to see what time it'll get, which we'll be doing later on in the video. And if you haven't already guessed, I'm going to be taking the Civic to Mims Honda show. And this is where I reach a little bit of a problem. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of April. Now, Mims is on Sunday, the 16th of April. And this car is in no state to take to a car show. Because at the moment, it's in about 50 different shades of black, silver, and grey. And that interior really is a sight for sore eyes. So I've got 5 days to get this car ready for Mims, and I've got a lot of work ahead of me, so let's get to it. So first things first, I'm going to start off by taking off all the bits that need to go to be painted. Starting with the grille, then the bumper. It feels like I'm walking backwards, but sometimes you've got to go backwards to go forwards. Now I'm going to take the mirrors off, and you're all probably wondering, why didn't I get these bits painted before I put them on the car? Now the answer to that is I wasn't sure if I was going to like everything on the car, so I put them all on to make sure they all fitted right and looked good before sending them off to be painted. But I think it's safe to say all the mods I've done in the last video completely transformed this car, especially the wing that I wasn't too sure about fitting, but I am so glad that I did. That's the wing off. That's everything off the car ready to go to be painted. I'll just have my fingers and toes crossed that we get everything back before Sunday. Because if I don't, I'm not going to make it to the show. Because I have left it until the literal last minute. So today's Friday the 14th, which means I've got 2 days until the show. In the last video, I fitted spacers to the front of the Civic because it literally wouldn't move without them. And I went with 20mm spacers, and if you ask me, it sits pretty perfect. But the same cannot be said for the rears. It looks like a hovercraft. And yeah, you probably guessed it, I've got another pair of spacers which should sort that out. Now if you've never fitted wheel spacers before, they're such an easy mod that makes such a big difference. Just make sure that you buy the right ones for your car and you do them up as tight as a wheel nut and you'll be absolutely fine. It's time to put the wheel back on and to see if my guess of a 20mm spacer is enough to fill the gap. So it looks so much better, but why does there always have to be a but? But the arch is now sitting on the tyre, so I've got two options. The inner arch is really thick, so I can either cut that out or I can raise the car. I think I know what I'm going to choose. But before you see which option I decided to do, with a bit of YouTube magic, let's get the other side on. How much better does that look? So I decided to go with cutting a little bit of the inside of the arch out, because if I'd have raised the car, I think it would have just looked rubbish. And you can do this with something called an arch roller, but every time I've seen someone try and roll an arch with a roller, it has just gone horrendously wrong. And just trust me that it looks much worse than it actually is. And with it being so close to the show and the fact that I have never done it before, I called in the help of Cass, who cut just a little bit of the inside of the arch out. Cass, you're a legend. And then he just put a little bit of primer on the inside of the arch just to stop it from rusting. And whilst Cass was sorting the arches, I decided to lower the front just a little bit just to get the stance absolutely perfect. And I don't know about you, but I think the fitment now is literally perfect. And the rear now has plenty of clearance. That's a mission success for today, but tomorrow I've got to get the whole car finished, and that's including the interior. Tomorrow's going to be a very busy day. So now we're sitting perfect, it's time to crack on with the interior. So first things first, I'm going to take both of the seats out just to give us enough room to do everything I need to do inside the car. And now I'm going to take all the interior trims out because I've actually got a carpet to put in this car because it never came with one. That's the armrest out. Now it's time to take the centre console out. And to do that, you just got to remove the gear knob, and there's a few screws on the side. It's a really easy job. Now I'm going to take the back seats out, and these won't be going back in, and you'll see why later on in the video. And this sub doesn't work, so let's take that out. Along with all of the wires, which I couldn't work out why they wouldn't come out. Well, obviously stupid me, they were still plugged into the back of the stereo. And after I unplugged them, obviously they came straight out. Now I'm going to give the car a full hoover and a full clean, ready for the new carpet. Then I put the radio back in. Now I told you all that I found a new carpet for this car, and the only one I could find was this grey one, which if I put it in like this would look absolutely awful. So I brought some black carpet dye off Amazon just to make it look a little bit nicer. And all I did was pour the dye into a spray bottle, and then you spray that onto the carpet and make sure you rub it in really hard with a sponge, and you got to do about 3 or 4 coats on the whole carpet. And whilst I'm waiting for the carpet to dry, I'm going to give the back of the interior a quick lick of paint, because I've decided that the look I'm going for with this car, I think it's probably going to look better if I don't have any rear interior. And the carpet doesn't go as far as the rear seats, so all of this is going to be visible, so I want it to look as good as possible. And the next thing, let me know in the comments if you've ever noticed this, but the rear window isn't tinted and both the rear side windows are. And it's bugged me ever since owning this car, and I'm not sure whether to have the whole thing tinted, so until then I'm just going to take the side ones off. And if you've ever took tints off, you'll know that this sucks. It leaves so much glue behind, and that glue is awful to take off. And also, whilst I've got it out, I might as well dye the armrest so it matches the carpet, which I left to my little brother. Cheers, Matt. The carpet looks so much better in black. Let's get it put in the car. Because like I say, this car never came with a carpet, so this is going to make a massive difference. And it was fairly easy to put in. It just tucks under the middle interior trims and the side interior trims. And voila, how good does that look? Now I've got to put all the interior back together, starting with the centre console, then the armrest. And I bought this gear knob extender to, well, extend my knob a little bit because every inch counts, right? And then I put in my genuine, authentic carbon gear knob, which was 20 quid off Amazon. Which actually looks so good. It's time to put the seats in, and no, we ain't putting these dirty things back in. Now this is the most exciting part of the video. I obviously wasn't going to put the old seats back in, and I decided to go with a pair of bucket seats. And I think it's about time I got them unwrapped and show you what I've bought. How sick are they? You versus the guy she told you not to worry about. And you can't just fit these like normal seats. You need different seat rails, which I got here. Let's get them in. Now, as I just explained, these seats use special seat rails, so the first thing I've got to do is take the seat belt off the standard seats and put it onto the new rails. Now I've just got to put these side brackets on. Now you can see they've got different points of adjustment, so you can adjust the seat so it's perfect for how you want to sit. So I just bolted the seat onto these brackets, and it's time to get them in the car. And whilst I was doing that, Joe gave the car a quick machine polish so it looks the best it can for the show. So let's whack the other seat in, and don't worry, I will be taking the covers off. The steering wheel that came in this car is absolutely awful. So you probably guessed that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to be changing in this video. But before you do anything, make sure you disconnect the battery, because I mean, I've never had it happen, but I have heard stories where people have set the airbag off whilst taking the wheel off. So there was 2 screws on the side which released the airbag. Then just a few connectors to take that off. And then there's just one big bolt in the middle of the steering wheel, which is normally really tight. So make sure you've got someone to hold the steering wheel, because you don't want the wheels to turn at all when you take the wheel off, because if not, when you put the new wheel on, it's all going to be out of line. So the technique to take a wheel off is if you just hit each side and from behind and stuff, it will eventually free it up. It's a bit of a tedious procedure, but it eventually came off. And now it's time to put the new steering wheel in. I'll show you it tomorrow in the daylight, but it looks so good. So it's now 9 o'clock and the car still looks like this. And the Convoy I'm going with are leaving at 4:30 in the morning. Let's smash this out so I can go to bed. And I don't know about you, but the interior is looking savage. Now let's match that with the outside. Remember at the start of the video, I sent loads of bits off to be painted. Well, they're back just in time. I want to make the biggest shout out to Joe for smashing them out. Joe, you're a legend. So I started off with putting the bumper on. And then I put the grille in, which reminded me I made a bit of a mistake. Now, I was only supposed to be testing this grille to see how it looked. Well, I completely forgot and sent it to paint, because as you can see, there's little bits missing out of it. But that's something I'm going to have to come back to, because I don't think any shops around me are going to be selling a Honda Civic grille the day before a car show. So that's all the front end put back together. How good does that look? So now I'm going to put the mirrors back on, and there's something about working with freshly painted parts that is so nerve-wracking. I then bolted the spoiler back on, but I'll be honest, I am absolutely knackered. And just one last thing, I've got to put a number plate on it. It looks so much better without one, but it's just not worth the hassle. So it's now 10:15 and I'll be lying if I said I am not knackered. So glad it's finally done. Let's get to bed. I'll see you all in the morning. Listen, I am not a morning person. Well, this isn't even the morning, this is the middle of the night. And I'll be honest, I didn't pick up the camera too much in the morning because I was like a zombie, but because we were part of a convoy, we stopped at numerous places to pick different people up. And I've never seen so many Hondas in the same place, and we're not even at the show yet. And the convoy was so cool. It was like being part of a Fast and Furious film. Well, when they used to be good anyway. There was so many cool Hondas. So we've arrived at Santa Pod. Now if you didn't know, Santa Pod is famous for its quarter-mile drag strip, which I'll be taking the Civic down there in this video, but before I do that, I just want to appreciate the hard work that I've put into the Civic over the past few days. Even though it's dirty, how good does it look now everything's one colour? And the interior, well, I cannot believe how good it looks. And Mims did not disappoint. They had some of the coolest Hondas I have ever seen. And an M3, which last time I checked isn't a Honda. And there was so many cars that weren't Hondas, but had Honda engines put into them, like this MR2, which had a K20 with a turbo the same size as my head. But there were so many different styles. You had your race cars, you had your perfectly clean OEM cars, like this beautiful DC2. But there was so many cool cars. It was hard to take it all in. And there was so many cool number plates. And this Civic had a see-through bonnet. Anyway, I think I got a little bit sidetracked, but I explained to you that Santa Pod is famous for its quarter-mile drag strip, which is where you'll see these crazy drag cars that are literally made for straight line speed. But they also give you the chance to take your own car down the strip. And this guy took his electric Honda down there and gapped an EP3. So I think it's about time I took my Civic down the drag strip. It would be rude not to bring the Civic to Santa Pod and not go down the strip. Wish me luck. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. So here we go. It's time to roll down to the start line. And I was just so scared about stalling. But here goes nothing. Nah, that was too sick. That was so much fun. So the Civic did a quarter mile in 16.6 seconds, which is by no means fast, but I'm going to come back once the new engine's in the Civic and see how much I can knock off it. It's time to head home after a savage day. So I'm back from Mims. Well, it's been a couple of days, but what a sick show. And I'm so glad I managed to get it finished in time. Because I'll be honest, there was a point where I thought the Civic wasn't going to make it. And I think that it's so sick that this is the first car that I took down Santa Pod drag strip. Even if it did take about 2 to 3 working days to get down there. But I think because it was so slow, it gave me more time to enjoy it. And I genuinely cannot believe how sick the Civic looks. I genuinely cannot believe that this is how I bought this car and this is how it looks now. And I'll be honest, even I doubted that this car would ever look this good. But hey, I did it and it looks so good. And this just goes to show to you all that if you really want something, nothing's impossible. And the new interior literally makes it feel like a different car. Honestly, these seats are the best mod that I've done to this car so far. The standard seats, honestly, were awful. You sat with your head on the roof. I know I've got a big head, but literally my head was on the roof and there was no side support, so you're all over the place. And that ain't even me exaggerating it. And now it feels like I'm driving some sort of F1 car. And the standard steering wheel, if you remember, the glue was all gone on it and it was massive. So literally just those 2 mods alone have made this car feel a million times better. And this Ghetto Works steering wheel sets this car off so well. I believe it's 330mm for those wondering, and it honestly feels perfect in this car. And my new gear knob and knob extender made it feel so good to drive. Because when you drive a car, the only things you actually feel are the steering wheel, gear knob and seats. So honestly, I know I say this about every mod, but they are the most important mods that you can do to your car. But the Civic's really starting to come together. And I suppose the next mod for it is going to be the new engine. So boys and girls, I'm going to end the video there. Make sure you let me know in the comments what you think of the Civic's new look. Make sure you smash the like button and hit the subscribe button because I'm really trying to make something out of this YouTube thing. And make sure you click that bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video, because the next video you guys are going to see, I'm going to be revealing my new project for the channel. But boys and girls, as always, thank you so much for watching. You're all legends. Peace.